John Miller was having the time of his life in London. He was a 35-year-old man from Texas who saved money for 2 years to visit England. This was his first trip outside of America, and he wanted to make it count. It was a sunny Tuesday morning when John woke up with big plans. He wanted to see the famous changing of the guards at Buckingham Palace. Everyone told him it was a must-see event in London. But first, John thought he needed some liquid courage to start his day right. When in Rome, John said to himself as he walked into a small pub near his hotel at 9 a.m. The bartender raised an eyebrow but served him a pint of strong English ale. "Just one to get my day going," John told the bartender with a wink. But 1 pint soon became 3, and by the time John left the pub, he was walking with a slight wobble in his step. John found another pub on his way to the palace. I should try all the local drinks, he thought. He ordered something called a snake bite, which was cider mixed with beer. It went down easy, and John had 2 more. By noon, John had visited 4 different pubs. His face was red, and his American flag t-shirt was slightly wet from spilled beer. Still, he was determined to see the changing of the guards. When John finally reached Buckingham Palace, a large crowd had already formed. People from all over the world stood quietly, cameras ready, waiting for the famous ceremony to begin. "Excuse me, coming through. American here," John announced loudly as he pushed his way to the front of the crowd. People looked at him with annoyed faces, but John didn't notice or care. The ceremony began with guards in red coats and tall black furry hats marching in perfect lines. The crowd watched in silence, impressed by the tradition and skill of the soldiers. But John was not a quiet tourist. The alcohol in his system made him feel brave and silly at the same time. "This is awesome," John yelled, much louder than needed. A few people nearby told him to be quiet, but this only made John want to be louder. He pulled out a small American flag from his pocket and began to wave it wildly above his head. "USA, USA." He started to chant, as if he was at a sports game back home. A mother with 2 small children moved away from John. An older British man shook his head and muttered something about disrespectful Americans. But John didn't stop. The more people stared at him, the more he enjoyed the attention. The guards continued their ceremony, trained to ignore distractions like John. One guard stood perfectly still at his post, not moving a muscle or changing his expression. John was amazed by this and decided to test just how serious this guard really was. "Hey buddy, can you smile for me?" John shouted at the guard, who did not react at all. This made John laugh loudly. "These guys are like robots," he said to no one in particular. A palace security officer noticed John's behavior and began walking toward him. But before the officer could reach him, John had a brilliant idea. At least it seemed brilliant to his drunk mind. "I bet no one has ever tried to ride one of these guards," John thought with a grin spreading across his face. "I'll be famous on social media." With that thought, John ducked under the rope that separated tourists from the ceremonial area. The crowd gasped as John, still waving his little American flag and chanting "USA, USA," stumbled toward the motionless guard with a wild look in his eyes. The crowd watched in shock as John stumbled toward the royal guard. No one could believe what they were seeing. Some people took out their phones to record the moment. Others covered their children's eyes. "This is gonna be epic," John shouted as he got closer to the guard. The guard stood perfectly still, staring straight ahead. He was trained not to react to anything while on duty. 2 other tourists, Mary and Bill, who were also from America, saw what was happening. "Oh no," Mary said. "He's going to make all Americans look bad." Bill nodded. Someone needs to stop him before he gets in real trouble. But it was too late. John was now just a few feet away from the royal guard. The guard could see John from the corner of his eye, but did not move or change his expression. "Hey, Mr. Fancy Guard," John called out, waving his little American flag. "Let's make this ceremony more fun. The security team started moving faster through the crowd. They could see that John was about to do something very stupid. But the crowd was thick, and they couldn't get to him quickly enough. John's new plan seemed perfect in his drunk mind. He would climb on the guard's back, like riding a horse, and get someone to take his picture. It would be the best souvenir from his trip to London. He would post it online and get thousands of likes. USA, USA, USA. John chanted even louder as he prepared to make his move. Some people in the crowd were now recording videos with their phones. Others were trying to get away from the scene, not wanting to be part of what was about to happen. A British family standing nearby looked horrified. The absolute nerve of that man. The father said to his wife, "No respect for our traditions." John took a deep breath and made his move. He lunged forward, trying to jump onto the guard's back, but being drunk made John clumsy. He misjudged the distance and ended up crashing into the guard instead of climbing on him smoothly. The guard, caught by surprise, stumbled forward but quickly regained his balance. For just a second, his perfect posture was broken. It was the first time in the guard's 3 years of service that he had been forced to break protocol. 2 other guards nearby saw what happened. They looked at each other briefly, then moved toward John. Unlike the ceremonial guards, these men were real soldiers with real training. They were not going to let this drunk tourist ruin their ceremony. John didn't notice the approaching guards. He was too busy trying to get up for a second attempt. "Come on, buddy," John said to the guard he had crashed into. "Let me ride on your shoulders. It will be awesome." The crowd's shock had now turned to anger. "Shame on you," someone shouted. "Go home, Yankee," called another voice. John finally noticed the 2 guards coming toward him. Even in his drunk state, he could tell they were not happy. Their faces were serious, and they moved with purpose. "Whoa, guys, just having some fun," John said, raising his hands. "No need to get all serious." The guards didn't say a word as they approached. One of them spoke into a radio attached to his uniform. In the distance, John could hear police sirens. A small group of palace security officers had now pushed through the crowd. They joined the guards, surrounding John. The changing of the guard ceremony had stopped completely. All eyes were on John, who was starting to realize that he had made a big mistake. "Sir, you are under arrest for assaulting a member of the Queen's Guard," one of the security officers said in a firm voice. "Please put your hands behind your back." John's face went pale. The alcohol in his system couldn't hide the truth anymore. He was in serious trouble, and it was all his own fault. John stood frozen in place as the security officers surrounded him. The sirens got louder and louder. His happy day of fun was now turning into the worst day of his life. The alcohol was still in his system, but John was starting to feel more clear-headed because of the fear. "I didn't mean any harm," John said weakly. His voice was no longer loud and proud. Now he sounded scared and small. "It was just a joke." "Assaulting a royal guard is not a joke, sir," said the security officer. "It is a serious crime in our country." 2 police cars arrived outside the palace gates. 4 police officers walked quickly toward the scene. The crowd parted to let them through, many people still recording everything on their phones. John suddenly remembered his phone in his pocket. He had been recording parts of his day to show his friends back home. Now those happy videos would end with his arrest. His stomach felt sick, and it wasn't just from the beer. "Please, can't we talk about this?" John begged. "I'll apologize to the guard. I'll do anything. Please don't arrest me." The police officers reached John and listened as the security team explained what had happened. One police officer shook his head in disbelief. "Sir, please put your hands behind your back," the police officer said to John. He took out a pair of handcuffs. Mary and Bill, the American tourists who had watched everything, came forward. "Excuse me," Mary said to one of the officers. "We're Americans too. We don't know this man, but is there anything we can do to help?" The officer looked at them. "I'm afraid not, ma'am. This man has broken the law. He must face the consequences. As the police put handcuffs on John, he started to cry. Big tears rolled down his red face. "I can't go to jail," he sobbed. "I have a job back home. I have a dog who needs me. This was supposed to be my dream vacation." Some people in the crowd felt a little sorry for John now. Others still looked angry. Parents were using John as a lesson for their children about how not to behave. "See what happens when you don't respect other countries' customs," one mother said to her young son. The police officers began to lead John away. The changing of the guard ceremony slowly resumed, but it wasn't the same. The perfect tradition had been broken. The guard who John had crashed into was allowed to take a short break, which almost never happened during the ceremony. As John was led to the police car, a news crew arrived. They had heard about the incident on their police scanner and came to cover the story. John lowered his head, trying to hide his face from the cameras, but it was too late. "Can you tell us why you tried to ride the Royal Guard?" a reporter called out to John. John didn't answer. He couldn't explain his actions even to himself now. The police put him in the back of the police car and closed the door. Inside the car, John leaned his head against the window. He watched as the beautiful palace grew smaller as they drove away. His dream vacation had turned into a nightmare in just a few minutes. At the police station, officers took John's fingerprints and photo. They put his belongings in a plastic bag. The booking officer asked John many questions and wrote down his answers. "You will see a judge tomorrow morning," the officer told John. "Tonight, you will stay in a cell here at the station." John was given a phone call. With shaking hands, he dialed his friend David, who was staying at a different hotel in London. "David," John said when his friend answered, "I really messed up. I need your help." David arrived at the police station 1 hour later. He couldn't believe what John had done. David had planned to visit the British Museum that day, but now he had to help his friend instead. "I can't believe you tried to ride a Royal Guard," David said when he saw John in the visitor area. "What were you thinking?" John looked down at his hands. His face was no longer red from alcohol, but from shame. "I wasn't thinking," he admitted. "The beer was thinking for me." The police told David that John would see a judge the next morning. David promised to bring John clean clothes and to call the American embassy. That night, John slept in a small cell with 2 other men. One was arrested for stealing and the other for fighting. John could not sleep well. The bed was hard, and his mind was full of worry. Meanwhile, the video of John's failed attempt to ride the guard was spreading fast online. Someone had posted it on social media with the title, "Drunk American Tries to Ride Queen's Guard, Gets Arrested." By midnight, the video had over 1 million views. Back in Texas, John's parents saw the video when their neighbor called them about it. John's mother cried when she saw her son being led away in handcuffs. His father was angry and embarrassed. "That boy has always been wild," his father said, "but this is a new low." Morning came, and John was taken to court. He wore the clean clothes David had brought him, but he still looked terrible. He had dark circles under his eyes, and his hands would not stop shaking. The courtroom was small but crowded. Many reporters were there, hoping to get more details about the guard rider, as people were now calling John online. When John walked in, cameras flashed in his face. The judge, an older woman with gray hair and serious eyes, looked at John over her glasses. She did not smile. "Mr. Miller," she said, "you are charged with public intoxication, disorderly conduct, and assaulting a member of the Queen's Guard. How do you plead?" David had found a lawyer for John. The lawyer, Mr. Bennett, stood up. "My client pleads guilty, Your Honor," he said, "but he would like to express his deep regret for his actions." The judge nodded and looked at John. "Would you like to say something, Mr. Miller?" John stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. He looked around the courtroom and saw many unfriendly faces, but he knew he had to speak. "I am very sorry," John said in a quiet voice. I disrespected your country, your traditions, and that guard. I was drunk, but that's no excuse. I am ashamed of what I did." The judge listened carefully. When John finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. "Mr. Miller, as a visitor to our country, you have a responsibility to respect our laws and customs. Your behavior yesterday was disgraceful and offensive. Many visitors come to see the changing of the guard every day without incident. Only you chose to make it about yourself." John nodded, accepting her words. However, the judge continued, "I appreciate your guilty plea and your apology. I believe they are sincere." The courtroom was very quiet as everyone waited for the sentence. John held his breath. "For the charges against you, I fine you £5,000, the judge said. "You will also write a formal letter of apology to the guard you assaulted and to the royal palace. Finally, you are banned from approaching any royal property for the remainder of your stay in the United Kingdom." John let out his breath. He had expected worse. No jail time meant he could go home when his vacation was supposed to end. "Thank you, Your Honor," John said, truly grateful. As John left the courtroom with David and Mr. Bennett, he realized his problems were far from over. Outside, a crowd of reporters waited with cameras and microphones. John froze when he saw all the reporters. There were at least 20 people with cameras and microphones waiting outside the court. When they saw John, they rushed toward him like hungry wolves. "Mr. Miller, how do you feel about becoming world famous for trying to ride a guard?" "John, was this a planned stunt or just a drunk mistake? Will you try to meet the guard to say sorry in person?" The questions came from all directions. Camera flashes blinded John. Mr. Bennett, the lawyer, stepped in front of John. "My client has no comment at this time," Mr. Bennett said firmly. "Please respect his privacy." David grabbed John's arm and pulled him through the crowd. They pushed past the reporters and ran to a taxi that was waiting nearby. Once inside the taxi, John took a deep breath. "Take us to the Wellington Hotel, please," David told the driver. The driver looked at John in the mirror. "Hey, aren't you that American bloke who tried to ride the guard? My kids showed me that video this morning. They thought it was hilarious." John sank lower in his seat. "Just drive, please," he mumbled. Back at the hotel, John found more bad news. His boss from Texas had sent him an email. The subject line was, "We need to talk when you return." John's stomach twisted in knots. Would he lose his job over this? "What am I going to do?" John asked David. "Everyone has seen that video. My parents know. My boss knows. I'll never live this down." David sat next to John on the hotel bed. "You made a big mistake," he said, "but it's not the end of the world. You need to own it and then move forward." John nodded slowly. "You're right. But how?" "First," David said, "you need to write those apology letters the judge ordered. Make them really good, really honest." John sat at the small desk in his hotel room and took out a pen and paper. He started to write his letter to the guard he had tried to ride. "Dear Sir," he wrote, "there are no words to express how sorry I am for my behavior yesterday. I disrespected you, your uniform, and your important job. I was drunk, but that is no excuse. What I did was wrong, and I am truly ashamed." Writing the letter was hard for John. He had to stop many times because his emotions were too strong. When he finished both letters, he felt a little better. That evening, John and David were eating dinner in the hotel restaurant when a man approached their table. He wore a nice suit and had a friendly smile. "Mr. Miller?" the man asked. "My name is Robert Thompson. I'm a producer for the Morning Britain TV show. We would like to have you on our program tomorrow to talk about what happened." John almost choked on his food. "You want me on TV? Why?" "Your story has gone viral," Robert explained. "Everyone is talking about it. This is your chance to tell your side of the story." David looked worried. "I don't think that's a good idea," he said. But John was thinking, maybe this was his chance to apologize to everyone at once. Maybe he could show people he wasn't just some stupid, drunk American. "If I do this," John asked, "can I read my apology letter on your show?" Robert smiled wider. "Absolutely. That would be perfect television." After Robert left with John's phone number, David looked at his friend. "Are you sure about this? Going on TV could make things worse." John took a sip of his water. He had not touched alcohol since his arrest. "I need to face this," he said. "I can't hide from what I did." That night, John couldn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't because of a hard jail bed. It was because tomorrow, he would face the entire United Kingdom on live television. The next morning, John woke up early. He stood in front of the mirror for a long time, fixing his hair and straightening his tie. He had bought a new shirt and tie the night before. He wanted to look respectful on TV. "You ready for this?" David asked as they ate breakfast. John could only manage to eat a piece of toast. His stomach felt like it was full of butterflies. "Not really," John admitted. "But I need to do it." A car sent by the TV show picked them up at 7:30 a.m. The driver was polite, but kept looking at John in the mirror, as if he couldn't believe he had the famous guard rider in his car. When they arrived at the TV studio, people stopped what they were doing to look at John. Some pointed and whispered. One young woman working as a production assistant asked for a selfie with him, which made John feel even more awkward. In the makeup room, the artist chatted as she put powder on John's face. "My kids think you're hilarious," she said. "My son keeps trying to climb on his big brother's back, shouting, 'USA!' We've had to tell him to stop." John didn't know what to say to that. He felt his face get hot with shame. The producer, Robert, came to get John when it was almost time for his segment. "You'll be on after the weather report," he explained. "The hosts will ask you some questions, and then you can read your letter. Just be yourself, and you'll be fine." Be myself, John thought. Being myself is what got me into this mess. From backstage, John could see the TV set. It was bright and colorful. The two hosts, a man and a woman, were sitting on a blue couch. Behind them was a large screen showing the now famous picture of John trying to climb on the guard's back. "And now," the female host said with a big smile, "we have a very special guest. You've all seen the video. The American tourist who had a bit too much to drink and tried to ride one of our beloved Queen's guards. Please welcome John Miller." The crew member nudged John forward. On shaky legs, John walked onto the set. There was some applause mixed with a few laughs from the crew. "Good morning, John," the male host said. "Quite an adventure you've had in London, eh?" John tried to smile but couldn't. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Thank you for having me." "So, John," the female host said, "the question everyone wants to know. What on earth were you thinking when you decided to try and ride that guard?" John took a deep breath. "The truth is, I wasn't thinking at all. I had way too much to drink. I was excited to be in London. I thought I was being funny, but I was just being stupid and disrespectful." "The video has now been viewed more than 10 million times," the male host said. "You're quite the internet sensation. How does that feel?" "Terrible," John said honestly. "I came to London because I love British history and culture. Now I'm known for disrespecting it. It's not how I wanted to be remembered." The hosts looked a little surprised by John's serious answer. They had expected him to be more like his drunk self in the video. "I understand you have something you'd like to read," the female host said after a moment. John nodded and took out his letter. His hands were shaking so much that the paper rattled. He cleared his throat and began to read. "Dear Sir," John read, his voice getting stronger with each word. "There are no words to express how sorry I am for my behavior. I disrespected you, your uniform, and your important job." As John read his heartfelt apology, the studio grew quiet. Even the camera operators stopped making small movements. Everyone was listening to John's honest words. Tears formed in John's eyes as he read the final lines. I will carry the shame of my actions for a long time. But I hope that someday you can forgive me. With deepest regrets, John Miller. When John finished reading, there was complete silence in the studio. The female host, who had started the interview with a joking attitude, now had a serious look on her face. The male host finally broke the silence. "Thank you for that, John," he said in a much gentler voice than before. "I think we can all feel how sorry you are." The camera zoomed in on John's face. Viewers across Britain could see the tears in his eyes and the real sadness on his face. John was no longer just the crazy drunk American from the viral video. He was a real person who had made a mistake and was truly sorry. "What happens next for you?" the female host asked. "Will you continue your vacation in London?" John wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I have 3 more days before my flight home. I'm banned from going near any royal buildings, so my plans have changed. But yes, I'll stay. I want to show that Americans can be respectful visitors." "And what would you say to other tourists coming to our country?" the male host asked. "I would say enjoy yourselves, but respect the culture and traditions," John said. "And maybe don't start drinking at 9 in the morning." This last comment made everyone laugh, including John. After the interview, Robert, the producer, shook John's hand. "That was incredible," he said. "Not what we expected, but much better. You might have changed some people's minds about you today." As John and David left the studio, John checked his phone. He had many new messages. Some were from friends back home who had seen clips of his interview online. Others were from strangers who had found his social media accounts. Most surprising was an email from his boss. It read, "John, saw your interview. We'll still need to talk when you return, but I appreciate your honesty and how you're handling this. Safe travels." "Maybe this is turning around," John said to David as they walked back to their hotel. Later that day, John and David visited the British Museum. John was nervous about going to a public place, but he wanted to see the famous artifacts. At first, nobody seemed to notice him. Then a group of teenage girls recognized him. "It's the guard rider," one of them said loudly. People turned to look. John froze, expecting angry words or mocking laughter. Instead, an older man walked up to him. "Saw you on the telly this morning," he said. "Good on you for owning up to your mistake. Takes courage, that does." A few other people nodded in agreement. One woman even asked for a photo with John, not to mock him, but because she was touched by his apology. That evening, something even more unexpected happened. John received an email from a royal staff member. It said that the guard he had tried to ride had seen his TV apology and accepted it. The guard, whose name was Private James Wilson, did not want to meet in person, but appreciated John's sincere words. "I can't believe it," John told David as they ate dinner. "He forgave me." "People can be understanding when you're truly sorry," David said. "You owned your mistake and apologized like a man. That matters." John slept well that night for the first time since the incident. The next morning, he woke up to find that a new hashtag was trending on social media. #ForgivenTourist. People were sharing the video of his apology instead of the video of his drunk attempt to ride the guard. Not everyone was supportive, of course. Some people still called John names online and said he should have been sent to jail. But many others praised his courage in facing the public and taking responsibility. "I think I've learned something important from all this," John told David as they had breakfast. "It's not just about how you mess up. It's about how you handle it afterward." "So what do you want to do with your last 2 days in London?" David asked. John thought for a moment. "I want to do something good," he said. "Something to show I've changed." That's when John had an idea. He would use his newfound fame to do something positive for London, something that might help make up for his terrible mistake. John spent the rest of the day thinking about what he could do to make things better. He wanted to show that Americans could be good visitors. He wanted to turn his mistake into something positive. "I've got it," John said to David that evening. "Remember Robert from the TV show? I'm going to call him." John called Robert and shared his idea. Robert loved it and promised to help. The next morning, John was back at the TV studio, but this time he wasn't there just to talk about his mistake. "Welcome back to Morning Britain," the female host said. "We have John Miller with us again, but today he's here for a different reason. John, tell us about your new project." John smiled, feeling much more confident than the day before. "After my big mistake, I wanted to do something good. So I'm starting a campaign called Respect the Culture. It's about teaching tourists how to enjoy Britain while being respectful." "That sounds wonderful," the male host said. "How will it work?" "We're making a short video about proper behavior at tourist spots," John explained. "And we're creating small cards with tips that hotels can give to visitors. Things like, don't touch the guards and keep your voice down in museums." The hosts were impressed. They asked John more questions about his project, and John answered with growing confidence. At the end of the interview, the female host made a surprise announcement. "Our show will help pay for the first printing of John's information cards," she said, "and we'll help distribute them to hotels across London." John was shocked and happy. His idea was becoming real. After the show, John and David met with Robert and a small team from the TV station. They spent the day filming short clips at famous London spots. In each clip, John demonstrated both wrong and right ways to behave as a tourist. At the Tower of London, John showed how not to take photos where they weren't allowed. At Westminster Abbey, he showed how to speak quietly and respectfully. And outside Buckingham Palace, though he had to stay across the street because of his ban, he demonstrated the proper distance to keep from the guards. "Never, ever try to touch or ride the guards," John said seriously to the camera. "They are real soldiers doing an important job, not tourist attractions." The film crew laughed at this, but in a friendly way. They could see that John was truly sorry and wanted to help others avoid his mistakes. By the end of the day, they had enough footage for a 3-minute video. The TV team promised to edit it quickly and put it online the next day. That evening, something amazing happened. A British newspaper printed a story about John's campaign. The headline read, "Guard Rider Turns Guide. American Tourist Makes Amends." The story was mostly positive. It talked about John's mistake, but focused more on his apology and his new project. There was even a quote from a palace spokesperson saying they supported the campaign. John and David celebrated with dinner at a nice restaurant. For the first time since the incident, John felt good about himself. "Your last day in London tomorrow," David said. "What do you want to do?" "I want to do normal tourist things," John replied. "But this time, I'll be the most respectful tourist London has ever seen." As they ate, a family at a nearby table recognized John. The father came over with his young son. "My boy saw you on TV," the father said. "He has something he wants to ask you." The boy, about 8 years old, looked up at John with curious eyes. "Is it true you tried to ride one of the big guards?" he asked. John knelt down to the boy's level. "Yes, I did," he said honestly, "and it was a very bad thing to do. Those guards are soldiers, and we must respect them. Promise me you'll never do what I did." The boy nodded seriously. "I promise," he said. As the father and son walked away, John realized something important. His horrible mistake might actually help others learn. Maybe some good could come from this after all. On his final day in London, John woke up early. He looked out his hotel window at the city he had come to love, despite everything that had happened. The sun was shining, making the buildings glow with a golden light. Last day, John said to himself, "Let's make it count." John and David had breakfast together. David had to leave for the airport right after breakfast because his flight was earlier than John's. "I'm proud of you, man," David said as they said goodbye. "You turned a disaster into something good. Not many people could do that." The two friends hugged. Then David left for the airport, and John was alone for the first time since the incident. John spent his final day visiting places he had missed because of all the drama. He went to the National Gallery and looked at beautiful paintings. He rode the London Eye and saw the whole city from above. He visited Shakespeare's Globe Theatre and learned about the famous playwright. Everywhere he went, John was careful to be quiet, respectful, and sober. Sometimes people recognized him, but most just smiled or nodded. A few asked to take pictures with him. One tour guide even asked him to say a few words to her group about respecting local customs. In the afternoon, John got a surprise call from Robert at the TV station. "John, you won't believe this," Robert said excitedly. "Your video has gone viral. We posted it this morning, and it already has over 500,000 views. Hotels are calling us asking for your information cards." "That's amazing," John said. He felt a warm feeling in his chest. His terrible mistake was helping people after all. "And there's more," Robert continued. "A travel company wants to sponsor your campaign. They want to put your tips in their guidebooks and maybe even hire you as a consultant when you get back to America." John couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious," Robert said. "They'll email you the details tonight." Oh, and the British Tourism Board called. They love your campaign too. They're planning to share it on their official social media accounts. After the call, John sat on a bench in St. James's Park, trying to process everything. Just a few days ago, he was the most hated tourist in London. Now he was helping other tourists be better visitors. As the afternoon turned to evening, John decided to take one last walk along the Thames River. The water was calm, reflecting the lights from buildings on both shores. John stood on a bridge and watched boats pass below. An old man stood next to him, also watching the boats. "Beautiful city, isn't it?" the man said. "The most beautiful," John agreed. "American, are you?" the man asked. John tensed up a bit. "Yes, I am." The old man smiled. "My grandson showed me that video of you. The one where you apologized, not the drunk one. Said it was a proper apology, not like the rubbish most celebrities give these days." John smiled back. "Thank you. I really meant every word." "You know," the old man said, "everyone makes mistakes, especially in foreign places, but a real man admits when he's wrong and tries to fix it. You did that." The old man patted John on the shoulder and walked away, leaving John with tears in his eyes. The next morning, John went to the airport. As he waited for his flight, he checked his phone. The video now had over 1 million views. Hotels across London were giving out his information cards. The story had spread to other countries too, with news stations in America picking it up. As John boarded his flight home, he felt different from the man who had arrived in London 8 days ago. That man was just an excited tourist who wanted to have fun. This man was someone who had learned an important lesson about respect, responsibility, and making things right. The plane took off, and John watched London grow smaller below him. He would be back someday, he promised himself. And next time, he would be the best tourist London had ever seen. Back in America, a different kind of welcome awaited John. But that's another story.